Hi, welcome to the Prelude of To Lose the Veil. We just wanted to give you a heads up. As we were recording, we did run into some city life noises. However, we thought the content was great and we had an amazing time doing it. So, we decided to deliver it to you just the way it is. Please enjoy. Hi, welcome back. I'm Leslie and I am your host.
I'm Bonnie.
Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, also known as Soli.
Hello.
This is Gene.
I'm Brianda, aka Solek.
Is there any incident that triggered an episode where you felt that you lost the veil?
Yes. For me, that happened when I was having wrist surgery, and then that triggered it because I wasn't able to do a lot of the things that I was used to doing for myself, and I had to be still and recover. And then shortly after, I had my wisdom teeth removed, two of them. So I was super in pain. I was in so much pain, and the pain just brought me to a place where it was just like, what am I doing with my life?
Wow.
It was the most pain I've ever felt. And so I recovered from that slowly, and I went into depression. Like, I feel like it was a mild depression. I was just not interested in doing a lot of the things that I was used to doing. And I knew something shifted when one night, my cousin called me and she's like, "Girl, you gotta come over here." She was celebrating her friend's birthday party, and it was at this club. And she's like, "Your man is over here dancing with this chick. You better come check him." And I was just like, I really don't feel like it. I really don't feel like it. She's like, "I'll pay your cab ride. Just come over here." And I was like, "No, I don't think I'm gonna do that. I'm staying home." And then I just texted him. I was like, "Why am I getting messages of you behaving the way that you're behaving? Like, we gotta talk about this."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but I didn't show up. A earlier version of me would have showed up, cast and all. Like, what the fuck is going on in here? But I knew it was, once that happened, I was like, oh, okay, something's happening here. I'm like, I'm different. I feel different. So yeah, that's when I knew, and that was what triggered it. I think definitely going under anesthesia and feeling pain, and not going out.
So, what was brought to your attention through the experience?
What was brought to my attention was the patterns of the things I was doing that were not really beneficial and didn't actually make me feel better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
hmm
Yeah.
I learned that a lot of the things I was doing, kind of like a loop.
Mm.
I'm like, okay, I need to get out of this loop. Like, what am I really doing? What do I really want? Who the heck am I? Then I started asking myself that question. Who am I?
Wow. Yeah, that was a very big turning point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There wasn't a particular event for me. There was one time where my father and I went to the movies and we thought we were gonna see a specific movie. Like we bought tickets for a movie that I never heard of, but my father was like, "Oh yeah, I've been wanting to see this." And he thought it was something else. He thought it was something that it wasn't. So we basically bought tickets to a movie that neither one of us knew what it was, and it was called What the Bleep Do We Know? And so it was like the movie chose us, right? Because we thought we were going in for something completely different. We saw What the Bleep Do We Know? And that was the first time that I ever saw those topics and subject matter, that type of subject matter presented and broken down in such a way where I was just like, everything that they were speaking of in the movie made sense to me, even though it was something that it was a conversation I had never been a part of before. Like I had never had these conversations. The things that they were talking about were never things that I spoke about with other people. But everything they said in that movie, every single speaker said in that movie made sense to me. That's what started shifting. It was like this awareness light went on where I know this already, even though I never knew it before. And so after that, it was kind of like a series of things. But for me, it was a slow burn. There wasn't like this one. I didn't have a rude awakening or like some major occurrence that completely took the veil, out from over my eyes. It was just these little intros, these little things, and for me, it started with that movie. Where I remember I watched that movie and then I introduced it to my friends and then we kept watching it over and over again. And it was between that and The Matrix. We would just watch those two movies over and over and over again. What the bleep do we know and The Matrix? Because there was just so much in there that we wanted to wrap our head around. But it wasn't until later that things just started shifting in my life. Like my life had been one way for a while. I had like the same friends and all this stuff. And then it was like my friend group started changing. People started leaving my life. And just like I felt like things were falling apart, not in a major way across the board, but just as far as my social circles, things were shifting dramatically. And it caused me to take a look at what my role was in it, and just take a deeper look at myself. And that was around the same time that another friend introduced me to spirit science. And so between watching spirit science and just having to face the friendships in my life kind of fall to the wayside, and that was like a process of like 5 years, from like 2012 to 2017. That's when I just started digging deeper at what am I really doing here? I also went to a landmark course in 2012. And so I was asking myself, like, what is the story? What is the story I'm telling? What are the stories I'm telling myself? Like, what is it that I'm addicted to? Like, I just started asking myself these questions, and it took me a while to answer the answers, but those little things helped me to be real with myself. And by the end of it, I just started looking at things with a new perspective. I felt like every person, whether I casted them as a villain or a hero, was in my life to help me see myself for who I really was and help me to love myself. Because throughout that whole time, like, from the time that I saw What the Bleep Do We Know, which was in 2004, all the way to 2017, I wasn't loving myself. I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of my actions reflected that, especially during those years where I realized that I wasn't appreciating what I've been through and who I am, and I started to work on doing just that.
Wow. Wow.
What I learned was that even the things in my life that I thought weren't my doing were still my doing. I always felt connected to God, but what I learned is that that's when I started accepting that I am God. Being a child of God took on a new definition during that time. So up until that point, I felt, you know, when I prayed, when I talked to God, it was very much like, I don't even deserve to talk to you, God. Like I was very much like always putting myself down in relation to God. And then around that time in 2017, when I started being like, God doesn't want me to put myself down. God doesn't want me to feel separate. All those things started clicking for me. Like, it's not about this, yeah, this separation is not about a separation. It's about the fact that when I feel like I'm being the worst version of myself, is when I should still acknowledge the God in myself. That's when those things started making sense to me. Now, it wasn't something that I turned on though. It wasn't like, oh, and then I woke up and now I'm like, oh, all good. Nothing to forgive here because I am God. It wasn't an easy process from then until now, right? But that's when I started, when the way I related to myself within the spiritual frame started opening up, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I learned. I learned that there is no separation.
Right.
I guess is the main thing that I learned.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so is there any incident that triggered an episode where you felt that you lost the veil?
First of all, I don't think I've lost the veil. I think it's been coming down
Okay.
bit by bit. The only thing that really comes up for me as something of some significance, not to say there have been ongoing things that have brought me to where I am today, was what I said in one of our previous recordings. Was when on Easter, I looked at those two movies, about the greatest story ever told, and I can't remember the title of the other one. But it just, for me, it was kind of like when I was younger, I would go to church, and I really wasn't getting anything out. It was just a formality of going, hearing the words. It didn't do anything for me. Maybe a little later on, I might have questioned a few things. But when I saw those two movies that particular year, for some reason, I can't say what, it just reached deep down inside of me and had so much more meaning for me. It inspired, as I said before, it inspired me to go out and get the Bible, to read it. Later on, I got introduced to a word church. We studied that Bible, so I felt like I had developed a closer relationship and a more deeper understanding of who God was, who Jesus Christ was. So that was probably the first time that veil kind of came down and revealed itself to me. I had some dark times during my life. I was fortunate enough to come through.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, then later on I was introduced to Dr. Ford. I was going through some trauma, not trauma, but stressful situations on my job, because of the environment that we were working in. And I must say it took a little while, but through that work, I kind of finally got to a place where sometimes I might have read something on a spiritual level at one particular point in time. When I went back to it on another time, it was as though I had developed a deeper understanding, a more opening of myself, so to speak. And today, for me personally, I think it's still an ongoing process. There's still things that may happen in my life. But what I've noticed today about myself is I'm working on not being as judgmental about things as I used to be. I'm very judgmental for myself. I must continue to work on that. And then, I do a lot more self-talk. Every time I take a drive, like I have to go to Jersey, I have to self-talk myself because as soon as I get behind that wheel and those people start acting stupid, I almost lose it. And then I have to go, Gene, what did we say? Calm down. And now I'm being a little nicer because I have that aggressive mentality when I'm driving. Hey, you're not getting in here. I still have it a little bit. But for the most part, if people act nice and they want to get in, I let them in. So that's a big change for me because, I've been, I don't know, by nature, I'm kind of aggressive. You know what I mean? You're not going to get over me. But sometimes I've kind of softened up. I had issues with money and, when people be out there saying want $1 or something, I'm like, that could be $1. But let me tell you, one time, I don't know what that was about either. One time this guy had helped me, well, not really helped me, but I had lost my wallet in the street, some kind of way. Somebody stole it. Police called me up and said they had the wallet, and everything was in except the money. And when I was going home one night, this guy was on the platform, and he was asking for money. And I just whipped in there, whipped out a 5 and gave it to him. And there would have been a time I would have just ignored him. Mm-hmm. So it's little things like that tell me that things are changing for me in my life. But it's a continuous journey.
Yeah, definitely.
So you learn things about yourself as this veil is
my
coming
latest
down.
thing is I'm learning to love myself more. I realized I didn't really love myself like I should. So I'm working on that now.
Talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. That's so great. Is there any incident that triggered an episode where you felt that you lost the veil?
I'm looking, and the veil, in some ways, I relate to this as some, like, an illusion of human consciousness. When I look at it, I could say, man, that girl was sleeping. She was just sleepwalking through that whole thing. And when I was in college, I worked at this radio station. And there was, I think he was one of the DJs, and we were on a break. I used to run the commercials. And he went outside. He was smoking his cigarette peacefully, sitting on the side of, like a concrete thing that was in the front of the studio. And so I went out there because I thought, what a great time to get to know this person, and you ask all those questions that really mean nothing. You ask people where they're from. Do you like blue? Do you know, what'd you have for breakfast? Who cares? Um, and he was sitting there so humbly and peacefully. And I said, "What you thinking about?" And he was so kind. He looked at me and he said nothing. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe a human being could be just sitting there having absolutely nothing to think about. And in that moment, I just took it for what it was. It kind of altered my brain cells. I never thought about being somebody who like had nothing to think about. What must that be like? What would that be like just to be somebody just sitting around having nothing to think about? What would it be like to have that in my mind? That there was nothing there.
Absolutely glorious.
Wouldn't it, you think?
I think.
I
Just
couldn't even
operating from
imagine
this-
it. I couldn't imagine it.
They would call that being an airhead.
Oh, gotta go in there and check it out. And you just see there's nothing there. Oh. So, as we've been talking about this whole veil, and people talk about being woke, and I wonder, is there human beings have been chasing after enlightenment and think that there's like some place I'm going to finally be free for myself. And, have I been relating to that as being enlightened? I'm actually going to have some extraordinary, exceptional view or perception of humanity, of human consciousness, of my own consciousness. And maybe now I look at it like, what if that's like just all a sham? It's like, it's, what is that? They say it's like, who's the guy, the Wizard of Oz, behind behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, is there such a thing as like the possibility of some extraordinary consciousness that somebody can, come to?
I think, just kind of going back and forth with the idea, is there really such a thing as enlightenment?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an interesting space to be in. Kind of like that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not particularly excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of scary in a way.
Why?
Because I like this person. I like, this. When I look at that age, my 20-year-old self, my 8-year-old self, there are all these aspects of myself that I want to acknowledge because I see that young girl being curious and interested in life. And I learned that that's always been the case. I've always been really interested in discovering people. And in discovering people, I'm discovering life. And there's like life that's in me that just wants to be lived. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm learning is to just allow the life in me that wants to be lived to just like live itself, and sometimes I don't want to get up and go, but can I just have the life in me that wants to be lived just carry me? Just, all right, take me along for the ride. I'm with you.
I like that. I would love to. I think more of us need to be saying, okay, life, take me where you want me to go. I think we would all be happier if that was happening. Absolutely. I remember back in my 20s, I used to go to a lot of different things. And I went to a workshop. And in this particular day, the facilitator sent us out on journeys. And the object was to talk to somebody about this work. And this particular day, I had gone there. I had no money. I drove. We were supposed to do this at lunchtime. So this was okay. I don't have anything else to do. I can't eat. I can't do anything. So let me just go out and do the assignment. So we were over by the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, and I walked in there, and there was this man. He was Japanese, and I said to myself, oh, maybe I can help him just to start a conversation, see whatever he's looking for. And he said to me, I'm visiting New York, and this is my last day, and I was just looking for something, some picture to remind me of my time here. So I said, okay, I'm going to help you look. But in my head, I said to myself, too bad we're not in the village, because they used to have all these paintings on the sidewalk in the village, different artists. And a lot of times you would see like skylines of New York. And I said that to myself. So then he says, okay, I don't really see anything. So he said, you know what? You have been so kind to me. Why don't you let me take you to lunch? And at first I said, no. And then I said, okay, maybe a cup of coffee. So we walked out of the museum, and right in front of us was this guy with New York City skylines, paintings on the street. I almost got goosebumps. And I said to him, I said, oh, do you see anything here that you like? He said, no, this is okay. He said, so then it started to rain. And he said, okay, come on, let's get in the cab. So we got in a cab and we went to this place, and he treated me to my coffee because that's all I agreed to. And then he says, where do you need to go? By now it was raining really hard. So I'm going to get in the cab with you and we'll go and I'll drop you where you need. So I get back to the workshop, and everybody's giving their experiences. And as I'm giving this experience to the facilitator, his eyes begin to twinkle like stars. Just like, and I begin to see, oh man, the universe gave me everything I wanted in the moment as I'm performing this service. It blew my mind. That was like a very intimate look at how profound this seen unseen world is, because it just did. I didn't have any lunch. I'm going to buy you lunch. I was trying to help him. Oh, it's wet. You don't have anywhere to get back to your thing. I'm going to take you in a cab. I was like, I wanted those pictures outside. We walked out. Those pictures were right before my eyes. The veil dropped. That was a huge drop. Now I do have to say that I think that was a beginning, but I also think that we have many, many moments of the veil dropping. It's not just one time, you know, and we see different things. So the biggest thing that I learned about that, and I still forget sometimes, is that the universe got your back all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, can you see it? Can you recognize it?
Can you receive it,
Can
Leslie?
you-
He was trying to buy you lunch,
Oh,
Leslie.
wow.
I would have been like, yes, get my lunch. I'm hungry.
But that's part of it. That's part of the veil. That's about loving yourself. Can you receive everything that's in the universe is trying to get you to love yourself? That's deep. That's my experience. So that's what I learned. That the universe is here, always been here, never went away. So now, how can you move everything out of the way so that all you do is rely on the universe or God or your higher self or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I learned.
All right.
Well, we want to thank you for coming in again. And please stay tuned. Come back. Okay, ladies, let's say goodnight.
Good
Bye.
night. Or good evening, good morning, whatever.
Wherever
after
you
that.
are, right?
All the power.
All the love.